I've had enough. I want to go home and I want to live in the country and get a Range Rover and get the dogs, the welly boots, and, you know, the scarf, and cook bakies for the YMCA or whatever.
I've had enough. I want to go home, and I want to live in the country, and get a Range Rover, and get the dogs and the wellies and cook bacon. Those were the words Christine McVie spoke in an interview near the end of her tenure with Fleetwood Mac, and the world laughed warmly, assuming it was the charming, self-deprecating humor of a rock legend who had earned the right to be eccentric. Nobody understood that she was not making a joke. She was issuing a distress signal. She was describing, in plain and specific language, the life she had been secretly craving for 30 years while standing in the most chaotic, substance-saturated, emotionally cannibalistic band in the history of popular music. And the fact that nobody heard it for what it actually was, that is the most revealing thing of all. Christine McVie was born Christine Perfect on July 12, 1943, in Bowth, Lancashire, in the English Lake District. The name itself is almost impossibly apt for a woman who would spend the next 6 decades constructing a flawless public surface over a deeply complicated interior life. Her father was Cyril Perfect, a concert violinist and music teacher. Her mother had an interest in faith healing. The household was disciplined, classical, and quiet in the specific way that English rural households of that post-war era tended to be: ordered, understated, and emotionally contained. Christine absorbed those qualities so completely that they became indistinguishable from her actual personality, which made the psychological work she would later perform in public almost undetectable to the people watching her most closely. She studied sculpture at the Birmingham Institute of Art and Design, then known as the Moseley School of Art, and it was there that the British blues explosion of the mid-1960s redirected the entire trajectory of her life. The art school world of Birmingham in 1962 was electric with the sound of young British musicians attempting to replicate the raw emotional architecture of American Delta blues, and Christine, with her rigorous formal training in music theory, found herself gravitating toward a Hammond organ in a smoky basement rather than a lump of clay in a studio. She joined Chicken Shack, a gritty, seriously competent British blues outfit signed to Blue Horizon Records, the same label that had launched early Fleetwood Mac, and her cover of Etta James's I'd Rather Go Blind in 1969 became a substantial hit in the United Kingdom. The readers of Melody Maker, Britain's premier music weekly at the time, voted her best female vocalist 2 years consecutively. She was, by any objective measure, a genuine star. And she desperately did not want to be. This is the first and most important contradiction of Christine McVie's life, the one that explains everything that followed. At the precise moment her public profile was rising most rapidly, she was privately telling friends that her actual ambition was to finish her degree, find a position teaching art, and settle into a quiet, unremarkable domestic existence. Fame was not a goal she had constructed her identity around. It was something that had happened to her, and her response to it, even in these very early years, was to look for the exit while continuing to perform brilliantly at the entrance. She met John McVie, the fiercely talented and famously hard-drinking bassist for Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac, during the overlapping touring schedules of their respective bands. They married in August 1968 after a courtship measured in weeks rather than months. Immediately after the wedding, Christine did something that genuinely stunned the British music press. She quit Chicken Shack. She walked away from a rising solo career without apparent hesitation and announced her retirement from the music industry. She wanted to be a housewife. She said it plainly and without apology, and she meant every word of it. Fate intervened in May 1970 when Peter Green, the visionary creative engine of Fleetwood Mac, suffered a severe psychological collapse and departed the band abruptly. The group was in genuine crisis, financially exposed, contractually committed, and creatively hollowed out. Mick Fleetwood and John McVie, facing the potential dissolution of everything they had built, turned to the one musician they trusted to stabilize the situation. They asked Christine to join permanently. She agreed out of loyalty to her husband, believing, with the particular optimism of someone who had not yet seen how this story ends, that sharing a stage with John would preserve their marriage. She was wrong in the most expensive way possible. Joining Fleetwood Mac did not save her marriage. It institutionalized the wreckage of it, binding her to her ex-husband for the next 3 decades in a professional arrangement that allowed no clean emotional exit. By 1973, the band had relocated to Southern California, and the addition of Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham in late 1974 completed the lineup that would record Rumours, released in February 1977. Rumours became one of the best-selling albums in recorded music history, eventually certified platinum more than 20 times in the United States alone. It spent 31 weeks at the top of the Billboard 200. The album's extraordinary commercial success was built directly on the documented emotional catastrophe occurring simultaneously in the personal lives of all 5 members. During the recording sessions at the record plant in Sausalito, California, Christine and John's marriage had collapsed under the weight of his alcoholism and the relentless pressures of touring. Stevie and Lindsay were conducting their own explosive breakup across the studio console. Mick Fleetwood had discovered his own marriage was ending. The album that sold 40 million copies globally was essentially a group therapy session conducted in real time with the tape rolling. For Christine, surviving the Rumours sessions required a specific kind of psychological engineering that she had been quietly developing since the moment she joined the band. She could not afford to process her emotions in the normal human fashion. She was 3 feet away from her ex-husband every day, watching him play bass lines she had written, in a room where 2 other people were conducting their own simultaneous emotional warfare. The only functional strategy available to her was complete compartmentalization. She separated the performing Christine from the experiencing Christine with such precision and such consistency that the people working alongside her in the studio genuinely believed her composure was natural rather than constructed. She described the daily chemical assistance she deployed during this period, a combination of cocaine and champagne, not as recreational indulgence but as calibration. A means of maintaining the precise emotional register required to continue functioning inside a situation that would have been psychologically unsustainable without pharmaceutical mediation. The songwriting tells the story that the composer concealed. While Stevie Nicks processed her experiences through elaborate mythological imagery, witches, white-winged doves, wild hearts, Christine wrote with a disarming directness that functioned, paradoxically, as perfect camouflage. You Make Loving Fun, one of the most joyfully infectious tracks on Rumours, was written about her secret affair with Curry Grant, the band's live lighting director. The song was recorded with John McVie playing its bass line in the studio, completely unaware, by multiple accounts, of the track's actual biographical origin. Christine maintained the fiction that it was a song about a dog. She allowed her ex-husband to play the musical foundation of a song celebrating his replacement without ever telling him the truth, because telling him the truth would have destabilized the production and potentially destroyed the album. That is not the behavior of someone casually hiding a small personal matter. That is the behavior of someone who has learned to manage an entire emotional ecosystem in real time, with the stakes measured in millions of dollars and the careers of 4 other people. Her most psychologically costly relationship outside the band arrived in the form of Dennis Wilson, the Beach Boys drummer, whose life Carl Wilson and other family members and associates have described across multiple published accounts as a decades-long controlled demolition. Dennis Wilson was magnetic, genuinely musically gifted, and profoundly self-destructive in ways that went far beyond the ordinary excesses of the rock world. Christine and Dennis were involved for approximately 3 years in the late 1970s and early 1980s. She has spoken in interviews, including a notably candid 1984 conversation with Musician magazine, about the particular exhaustion of loving someone who seemed organically incapable of wanting to survive. She described staying up through nights attempting to keep him functional, watching a man of genuine talent and sensitivity accelerate deliberately toward the cliff edge. When Dennis Wilson drowned in Marina del Rey on December 28, 1983, at the age of 39, Christine lost something she never publicly named but that her subsequent songwriting clearly mourned. The songs on Fleetwood Mac's 1982 album Mirage, particularly Never Make Me Cry, carry a weight entirely disproportionate to their commercial surfaces. Her 1986 marriage to Portuguese keyboardist Eddie Quintela, whom she met during the recording of Tango in the Night, represented her most determined attempt to build the ordinary life she had been pursuing since 1968. Quintela was from outside the music industry ecosystem, and Christine appears to have believed that this outside status would provide the domestic stability that a career spent inside the Fleetwood Mac machine had consistently denied her. Instead, Quintela reportedly delivered an ultimatum: the band or the marriage. According to accounts from people close to the situation, including comments Stevie Nicks made in subsequent interviews, Quintela resented the band with an intensity that transformed the marriage into a Cold War conducted across tour schedules. Christine attempted compromise, co-writing Little Lies and Save Me with Quintela and crediting him formally, effectively incorporating her husband into the professional world he resented as a means of managing his hostility. It did not work. The marriage deteriorated through the massive Tango in the Night tour of 1987, and they divorced in 2003. The breaking point arrived in 1998 during the Dance Reunion tour. Christine developed a severe phobic response to flying, full panic attacks, Physical symptoms: the complete involuntary rejection by her nervous system of the one mode of transport that a stadium-level touring career makes unavoidable. Her body was communicating what 30 years of compartmentalization had prevented her from saying directly. It was finished. She quit Fleetwood Mac at the end of that tour, sold her Los Angeles properties, and relocated to a Tudor estate called Wickham Court in a small village in Kent. For the next 16 years, she did not perform publicly. She reportedly did not own a piano for the first several years. She walked her dogs. She learned to cook properly. She introduced herself to local people simply as Christine, without the surname that